So I had a friend send me a little something this week relating to worship, and it was this article, and it had this picture, and it was kind of a mainline denomination. And he said, for anybody who raised their hands during worship, they were tasering people who worship. And he said, I can't believe this is happening. And I won't tell you who sent it to me because Byron. But anyway. And I said, Byron, you got to check that out. I can't imagine that that's true. And he checked it out, and he sent a little later, and he goes, well, there's not even an XYZ church in this place in Virginia, so it was fake news. But anyway, we will not taser you if you raise your hands. It's not freaky. It's okay if you do. It's okay if you don't. It's just, the Bible talks about raising holy hands. And I was watching the Pittsburgh, just a smidge last night of the Pittsburgh Steeler game, and they couldn't move the ball, and it was cold. It was frigid cold, and finally they made a first down, and the people went nuts, waving the terrible towels and all that, and the frozen, and they were going crazy for a first down. And we're afraid to do this because, the creator of all things, well, all right, thank you very much. Come on, let's relax. It's okay. You don't have to. You're not forced to. But I can't not do that sometimes. My hands I was back here in my little cubby hole back here, and I was just listening, and my arms just go, what's happening? My arms are just going up. It's almost impossible not to. 2025. I put this in your little missive this week. I remember as a junior high kid or whatever, reading George Orwell's 1984, and I just thought, man, that is so far distant future. We'll be in flying cars by then and all that. 1984. That's come and gone. Could you have imagined 2025? That's just insane. It felt like yesterday was Y2K. That's a quarter of a century ago now. It happens so fast. So what do you do at the beginning of a new year? Well, I always think about, Lord, I want to commit in some way. I want to commit my year to you. Some of you know this. And again, please understand, as your pastor who loves you, I'm not doing this to make you feel like I'm more pious in some way than I am at all. But I do want to give you, maybe just plant some seeds in your head to begin to think about years. Think about your year. Think about your past year. How did it go? Did you grow spiritually? Do you feel closer? Do you feel more worshipful? Any of that. So usually what I do, I go to bed about 8 o'clock. I'm absolutely pathetic. Do never ask me to go to dinner unless it's 5:30 or earlier. So I'm usually in bed, but I'll set the alarm, 11:55, get up, and I just go into my office. I get down on my knees. I turn on some worship, whatever it is. I raise my hands. I get on my knees. I'm just like, Lord, I'm going to think about 2024. Thank you for what you did. Usually I feel like I kind of failed in that area. Lord, change me. I want to be different in 2025. And then I do this, Proverbs 16, verse 3, commit your works to the Lord. So for 2025, on a personal, this is very personal to me, Lord, I want to commit my works to you in 2025. Now, I know that I'll constantly be trying to grab my life back from you, and I'll not want to do something you tell me to do through your Holy Spirit or something. But I by intention and by design for 2025, I want to commit my works to you. And then the Bible simply says, and your plans will be established. Like the more we get on the same page with the Creator of our souls, the more we find things working out. It's amazing how that works. My friend Greg, we were at Hideaway this week with a bunch of men over there, and he said something to that effect. He's like, the more I get on page with the Lord, the more my prayers are answered, because He's answering those things that are going to be best, not only for me, and this is going to be kind of the series that we're going to be working through. Gosh knows how long this series will be, but it's okay. We're not in a hurry. Lord, I want to be on the same page with you, and when I am, not only my plans established, but your plans are established through me. And that always means good things for those near me. That means good things for my community. That means good things for the Coachella Valley, and people don't know Jesus at all. I mean, they just I don't know about this religion stuff, and, I had a bad experience, or look, this is not about religion at all. One of the things about Church of the Red Door, if you're new, this is not about religion. And I know it's semantics, but really, it's really about the person of Jesus, the God-man who came, and then your relationship with Him, and then the outflow of that relationship leads to community and new life. And it's like Ezekiel the prophet had seen, and we've talked about this. Like he's a picture of a temple and water comes, flowing out of the temple, and everywhere the river goes, things come to life. I want people to come to life around me, not because I'm special, but because I have committed my works to the Lord so that that river can flow through me and out to others. That's the very Spirit of God. And that's why Jesus said, I am the water of life, as one example. It's Jesus. I want you to know Jesus. Church at the Red Door wants you to know, not know about, know Jesus. I know about a lot of people, but I don't know people often, right? I know about them, but I don't know them, okay? So here we go. We're going to talk. This is going to be kind of what's called a one another series. One another series. Yeah, you might want to work on your cell phones. I got somebody calling me that doesn't know me at all, and they're trying to call me, and they don't know me enough to know that I'm standing up in the pulpit right now, so they shouldn't be calling me. I'm just giving you a hard time. Romans chapter 13. Romans chapter 13. We're going to do this series on one another's. Years ago, I did a study, and I've never really gone through this as a sermon or pre-teaching, but I just said, any place I can find kind of one another, like encourage one another, love one another, lift one another up, anything, I'm going to put it down. And it was shocking to find out about how God had orchestrated events to where you should love one another and that you should care for one another and consider others more important than yourself and all these things. And we're going to put this into how we connect with one another. And I'm hopefully along the way going to say, and this is why. Not just you ought to do this because good Christians ought to do this. What are the ramifications of this? For you, for community, for the Coachella Valley, for the world. For the world. Romans 13, verse 8. We're going to start there. Owe nothing to anyone except to love one another. For he who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. Okay, so we know love is important, don't we? I mean, love is important. But we're going to love, maybe some of you made your way kind of haphazardly through the 60s. Maybe you were one of the love children. Maybe you're one of the hippies, and maybe some of you were even at Woodstock. I don't know. Something happened, and you're just this free love for everybody, right? So, yeah, we're all about love. In fact, there aren't many religions. There aren't many philosophies. There aren't many that don't have some foundation of like, you should love. Well, that's kind of the golden rule. This is about love. Well, yes and no. Yes and no. Love, great, but founded in what? And founded upon what rock? And Jesus, right? Because there is a shared understanding about what love is in a true biblically centric, Jesus-centric community that will distinguish it from what happened in the 60s or whatever's going on out there now. In any cult you ever hear about, there's something, I was looking for love, I was looking for community, and I got sucked into this thing, and then, it was about love, but it ended up in tragedy. Jim Jones, David Koresh, the litany goes down, and now even more modern day examples. Sexual exploitation, all in the name of love. So we're not going to be talking about just love generically, or as our culture would in some way describe it. We want to get down over the coming weeks into what does this mean? What implications does this have? I want to make one statement up front, and that statement is simply this. My spiritual destiny, I know this as an individual, my spiritual destiny, my calling is intricately entangled with, as we've talked about the last few weeks, intertwined with other people. I cannot move into the fullness of what God has called me to do. You cannot move into the fullness of what God has called you to do without a loving community that is missional. You cannot. It won't happen. I can't think of any single thing that I've ever accomplished or what God has accomplished using my life in any way that wasn't, a fabric with many people that were involved. God wants this. Owe nothing to anyone except to love. And it fulfills the law. Like if you're loving people, you don't need somebody to tell. I don't need the law to tell me don't murder them. Don't sleep with their wife. Don't covet their stuff. I don't need that. but I need to have that love founded in something, and that something is what we're going to be looking at. Now, again, when we're talking about this, my spiritual destiny, my calling is involved. Now, on an individual basis, in terms of my eternal salvation, you can do that off on a mountain all by yourself. So, all of a sudden I had this revelation of Jesus, and we hear about this all the time. There's a seminary I serve on the board in the Middle East. We hear about this all the time in Arab countries and different places. People have a dream overnight, and they come into a relationship with Jesus through a vision or a dream. That can be done independently. So we're not talking about eternal salvation. We're talking about the outworking of the calling, the very purposes for which God puts you on the planet. That necessitates community. And so we need to learn what it is to be able to connect in community. I have to have you know, why is this so important? Well, first of all, new believers need a wholesome environment in which to come into, don't they? I mean, if they come off the streets here and I don't know about all that Jesus stuff, but maybe, I don't know. And they come pulling into our little river drive here, and they come in here and then they see two people that won't forgive one another or snapping, or they start hearing about gossip, or they start hearing any of that. You think that's the kind of environment that they're going to find Jesus in? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think it especially gives new believers a foretaste of what heaven should be like. That's the oughta, that's the should. Somebody should come into a community. Now, we're not talking about perfection here, because we are not. We're a million miles away from perfect. But we should be distinguished by our love for one another. We should be. We should be. They should see that and go, oh, okay, now I can taste something different there. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure, but my spiritual antennas are up and it feels different. I take a bite of that, it doesn't feel like when I take a bite out in the world. It tastes different. There's a different vibe. It feels like, well, I'm a little bit of love. I'm feeling some love there. Now, you can feel love different places, and I'm not talking about churches. I'm just talking about globally, different religions, different things. So we have to always make that distinction. We're not just talking kind of everybody just love in. I have a big love fest, love in, right? It's predicated on something, and it's the words and it's the teachings of Jesus. I'm going to quote again, and some of you know Os Guinness. I'm a big fan. Listen to what he says here. People are just looking for meaning. They're looking for relationship. They're looking for this. This is such an advantage to be thinking about, 2025, I'm committed to starting to, relate to people better. And that can start maybe with my marriage. Yes, that's true. It can relate to my family, maybe. But maybe just more an involved community like Church of the Red Door. I want to start having people be first. Why? Well, maybe you've been through, my wife told me at one point I'd maybe gone through 3 midlife crises, but this is what Os Guinness said. Midlife crises that are genuine and not simply fashionable are generally due to the tensions between 3 very different desires, okay? Number 1, for successful careers, for satisfying work, and for rich personal lives, okay? Now, who doesn't want, I'm not interested in rich personal life. I mean, who would say that? That's ridiculous. But he says early in life, the differences between our personal lives and our work may not be very marked or very obvious. But as life goes on, and especially if success in one sphere is not complemented by success in the other, a yawning chasm will open that leads to very deep frustration. I see this all the time. People that finally got everything they want, retired and they can play golf every day. Why that would be a dream for anybody, I don't know. That makes me sad most of the times. But play golf every day, do whatever, go to dinner every single night, right? Sadly, studies show a few people enjoy neither their work nor their personal lives. More enjoy their work, but not their personal lives. Only a few say that they enjoy both. We want to marry. What Jesus wants to happen is he wants to marry your vision and your calling, the very purposes for which he created you, to which your work can fit into. But your calling has to be first. That's why Jesus said you have to pick up your cross and follow me. That doesn't mean you have to quit your work or sell your company or whatever, but your purpose and calling has to be a priority over your work, or if you're post-work life and your retirement or whatever. You have to submit everything to Him for this thing to work. I hope you understand that, right? This is for your benefit. Because what happens, He wants to marry your calling with a rich personal life where you have connection and people know. And so many people that, like, if you hear about it all the time, people die and die in there. This happened in very close personal people that I was connected with in some way. And somebody died watching TV and they didn't find him for weeks and weeks. It says weeks and weeks, nobody checking on him, nobody connected. What a tragedy. Jesus wants to marry both of those things together. And guess what? That leads to abundant life. So this is a good thing. So let's spend the rest of the morning, the time that we have. This is quoted at more weddings and more. This is always quoted. 1 Corinthians 13. So we have to find a foundation for what this love really is. Because the world is going to make love sex. The world is going to make, I love her. Not the way you treat her. You know, I don't think you love her. You lust her, but you don't love her. So what is love from a Jesus perspective? What does Jesus culture love really look like? If we're going to talk about foundations, think of it as this: rules for engagement of how we connect with one another so that we grow this beautiful thing that will give a foretaste to people who don't know Jesus and things like that. How does that happen? We've got to have a foundation. This is it. Okay, so 1 Corinthians 13, verse 1. Paul speaking here to the church at Corinth. He says, if I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but I don't have love, I've become a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. Now, so he uses just some really, he's got a screech. Would you bring that chalkboard up here? I'm going to, no, I'm not going to do that to you. But that's what that is. He's saying, look, anything without love, if I just have, and he talks about in 1 Corinthians 8, if I have all knowledge, but I don't have love, knowledge puffs up. I mean, knowledge is important, but it's got to be paired with this love. So he's going to define it, but he says it's going to be like this. If I don't have it, that's a terrible example, but you get the point. You get the point. If I have the gift of prophecy and I know all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith, even if I have a lot of faith in God, so as to remove mountains, referring back referentially to Jesus and his teaching about removing mountains, but I don't have love, I'm nothing. I'm just nothing. The very kingdom that Jesus came to announce was a kingdom so bathed in love, whatever this is going to be, however he's going to unpack this, that all this other stuff, many of you, maybe even watching, you said, I experienced religion. I tried that Christianity once. If you experience love predicated on a really firm foundation, you wouldn't have rejected it. A lot of people reject religion or reject Jesus because they've had a bad religious experience, or they've read about other people having bad religious experiences or whatever, and they say, I don't want any of that. And guess what? I don't blame you. I don't blame you. But what you're rejecting is not Jesus, because 1 John chapter 4 says, God is love. So what is God? Well, let's see. He goes on to say, if I give all my possessions to feed the poor, and if I surrender my body to be burned, but I don't have love, it just doesn't profit me anything. And that relates to calling as well. You're just fruitless. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but people don't want to be around you. You don't want to be that person, do you? No. So what is it? Here we go. You ready? Love, it's patient. So those of you who are saying, come on, let's get this thing over with. I got to go. Just relax a little bit. Let's be loving now. Love is patient. Love is just kind. Are you kind? If your stuff comes back cold, are you kind? Are you? I was sharing with some guys. I can't believe I'm even saying this. No, I'm going to do it anyway. All right, you ready? So this is a comedian. He's very clean. He's from Tennessee. And all people from Tennessee are clean. And Nate Bargatze, and he telling this thing, and he was just talking about, no, it wasn't even him. It was a different comedian. But anyway, he's clean. And he's talking about why don't we review everything. I was telling the guys the other day, we review everything, like 5 stars, 5 stars. Now we feel like it's our right to give a star to everything. Like Church of the Red Door has stars, number of stars, right? That's a 4-star church. That's a 3.5-star church. You know, that's a 5-star church, you know. I don't know why we did, but we just have everything. So he goes, but you can't do no stars. It's really strange. The worst you can have is like 1 star. So he thought that was really strange. So he says, imagine going to a restaurant and he sends you some soup and you get the soup and it's cold. And he says, excuse me, I'm so sorry, but my soup's cold. Is there any way you could at least take it back and warm it up? And the guy takes the soup. Oh, sure, sir. And he pours it right over your head. And then he grabs you by the collar and he drags you into the kitchen to meet the chef, who then summarily whacks you on the head with the soup stuff that he was using. And then all the different guys come in and they beat you to a bloody pulp. And then you leave the restaurant and you're like, 1 star, 1 star. Not 0 stars, I've got to, because that's not an option, 1 star. Just be kind. Are you kind? Just give people the benefit of the doubt. Just be kind to people who you're with, people who serve you, people you're around. Love is kind. It's kind. Think about that. It's not jealous. No, I can't believe, she didn't deserve that. She did not deserve that. And I can't believe she has that and I don't have that. And she got so lucky. That guy, he didn't know anything. He just walked into that business at the exact right time. He didn't even know what crypto was. And now he's got $20 million because he bought something he didn't even understand. Don't be jealous. A community here is not jealous of anything, not jealous of another gift somebody else has, not jealous of what somebody has. We should be able to come here, people who have a lot and people who have very little, and there shouldn't be jealousy in any direction. That's not what a loving community has. We understand that God created us. We understand that He has a path for us. We walk into it. We're grateful for everything we have. We're not jealous. That love's not jealous. It doesn't brag. Doesn't brag. There's just no boasting. Why? Because there is a solid foundation and understanding if we do have something or we do have a gift that somebody else can see, is everything I have has been given to me. The old, I pull myself up by my bootstraps kind of thing. Have you ever tried to do that? That's ridiculous. I've never seen anybody pull themselves out. Imagine. I'm just like, you just couldn't do that. It's not, no, you're a created being. When we worship, all we're trying to figure out, we're trying to get in our head something that is like, okay, that's God, and He's the Creator, He's the infinite, and I am a clay pot. I can easily be broken. Many of you have health issues. I have had some significant health issues. My wife's not here. She's in bed. We're just so easily cracked. And the recognition that He's the infinite and I'm the finite can never lead to bragging. It just can't. So the foundation is God and I am not. And then at least you're at a place where you say, well, there's really nothing to brag about. Okay? And so we don't brag. Love, it definitely doesn't brag. It's not arrogant. Same premise. It doesn't brag. It's not arrogant. It doesn't act unbecomingly. What does that mean? It means exactly what you think it means. We don't lose our minds. We're not quickly angered. It's just, we don't act in such a way. Act in such a way that when you see somebody respond, because we all know we've been in situations as observers. When you observe somebody, and I'll give you an example, maybe somebody who's extremely popular or well-known within their sphere, and you might just revere this person, and you're in an environment where somebody comes that's way, way lesser than that, but doesn't know who they are, and then they treat them in such a way, and you're like, don't you know who this is? Oh my gosh. But that person responds with grace and dignity. They're not arrogant. There's no bragging. There's no, don't you know who? We hate the person who says, don't you know who I am? gets pulled over by the police. Don't you know who I am? Isn't respected at the gate of their own club that they pay $1 gazillion of dues for. Don't you know who I am? Don't you know that this isn't a car that has the stuff that gets me through the gate? I don't have my transponder because this is a rental car. Don't you know who? That's unbecoming. Just to be grace-filled. We want that. If we have a foundation in that, you don't think people are going to taste that? Sure they will. Now here's the biggie. Love doesn't seek its own. Do you get up thinking about others, or do you get up thinking about you? Is it more about others or more about you? Now, by the way, in weeks to come, we're going to understand that God's going to have to do this work in us. This is not just us trying. It's fine to try. It's fine to be intentional. We are going to need the power of a living God to indwell us in such a way that we take micro steps and it's all His power. Do you understand that? It's not like we don't have anything to do with it, but it's really going to be His power. Not seeking your own is so unnatural, it's scary. But that's what love is. It's not provoked. Are you easily provoked? It doesn't take into account, it doesn't take into account a wrong suffered. That's assuming you're going to encounter somebody's going to wrong you, and it just doesn't, you have no ledger. Well, they did this to me, and I did that little thing 3 years ago to them, but it doesn't compare to this. So I'm way up on this, and it just doesn't carry a ledger. I would have to say probably very few people don't have a ledger. Very few people. I struggle still with that. There are little things, little things that somebody did to me a long time ago, and it comes up, and it can bring profound emotion too. I refuse to make a case against people. I refuse. My intention, no, I do not make a case. And the best way to do that is pray for, Jesus told us the best way, pray for those who persecute you. Pray for them. If you feel like somebody's truly, most of our stuff's just pride and vanity stuff. They didn't respect me. They didn't do what I did. They didn't reciprocate, whatever. I mean, come on. We're not going to go there. We're just not going to keep a wrong. A ledger of those wrongs that we will inevitably suffer. It doesn't rejoice in unrighteousness. Now, this one, I have grown a lot in this as I've become closer to Jesus. When I see unrighteousness, it grieves me. It grieves me, both in myself and in society at large. And it really grieves me in church. When I see these things not being practiced in what should ostensibly be a loving community, it grieves me. It grieves me for the people involved. It makes me know there's a cancer there that could spread. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but I will not rejoice in unrighteousness. Now, I'm not aware of everything, and I don't walk in perfect righteousness, but I know the perfectly righteous one. And after a lot of years of following Him, I kind of know what He likes, and I kind of am aware of what He doesn't. And I don't rejoice in what He doesn't like. By the way, unrighteousness is un-Christness, because Jesus is our righteousness. Okay? And then the last few, it rejoices with the truth. Do you rejoice with the truth? I just do. This is so true. That's why I like to worship. This is the most true thing you'll experience all week. To worship God, to think about Jesus, to think about His kingdom, to talk about it. It's one of the most profound and powerful things, and I rejoice with that. If you can come to church that is a Jesus-centric, gospel-centric church and go, I don't know about that. This is true. You should have a spirit of rejoicing that this word about Jesus is getting out in a bold way. You should rejoice in that. That's love. That's love. It bears all things. It believes all things. What does that mean? No, it doesn't mean Pollyannish craziness. It just is willing to believe when Jesus says something, He's going to come through. That His word is true. That it's worth putting your whole life into, like some of those first songs said. We give you everything we have. It hopes all things. It just doesn't lose hope. Love just keeps hoping. I gave up on it. I finally just cut her off. I gave up on that. I put that person out of my life. I don't hope for that person at all. Maybe you're struggling with a lack of hope today. Love continuously hopes. It endures all things. And folks, it just never fails. So now we have a foundation. Now we'll expand on that in weeks to come. We'll go deeper into that. But I've got to tell you, that sounds different than a lot of things. My emotions want to take me in the opposite direction of these things. But I say that's a rock. And if I can build my life on that rock, and then I can join in this tapestry of missional community with more people that at least have a foundational understanding that these are our rules for engagement, and that we will always have a place to refer back to when we come into conflict. And next week we'll talk about practicing these things. How do you practice these things? I need somebody to practice on. I get to practice on you guys a lot. And you get to practice with me. Maybe I disappoint you. I forgot to call you, or you can practice not holding me accountable in that area, right? Not that you don't hold me accountable. Our elders hold me accountable. That's different. So this is what we're going to be talking about in 2025. But it starts with you saying, you know what, I think I want to commit myself. I want to commit my works to the Lord. I'm going to go down this road of love. I'll tell you right now, and in closing, just allow me to say, it's not your power. So if you've never tapped into the power source, that you can do by yourself individually. And that is, I believe, I confess that Jesus is the Lord, that He died for me, that His blood covers me, and I can be made part of His family in a moment's time just by choosing to follow Jesus. In a moment's time, my eternal salvation's settled. Everything's great. You say, that's too easy. Well, religion is working your way to God, but Jesus is God's attempt to get to you. And it's a free gift. You do nothing for it. And that's how you get your power. You're baptized and you're filled with God's Spirit. And guess what happens? Now you've got His power. Now you can intend to do these things, and you'll have this battle between your flesh and your new spirit that is now inside you for the rest of your life. But you want the Spirit to begin to dominate your old emotions and your old flesh and your old. So if you don't have the power, you just say, Lord Jesus, I want to follow you. I believe that you were dead and buried and resurrected for me. And I know now that I have eternal life, because the Bible says, believe upon the Lord Jesus and you shall be saved. Saved from what? The wrath of God. Because He's going to set all things right one day so that we can have heaven. So just tell Him that. Just say that. Then you can be born again today. That's what Jesus used that metaphor. And He'll deposit the seed of His Spirit in you. Then be baptized. Be part of a community. And then now, for those of you who have already done that, let's work on our people in 2025. Let's practice on one another. Let's do that.